Good morning. Good morning. Today is Monday, July 3rd, 2023. Um, let's set our intentions, make aspirations as we always do every week by saying the four immeasurables prayer. May all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all beings not be separated from the happiness that has never known suffering. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment, anger, and aversion. Um, so pretty straightforward today. We're going to meditate. Victoria's going to lead us in meditation and say a few things, and then we'll take questions. In general, I might have touched on this last time. Some of you may be new. Most of you probably aren't. So, a lot of people come to meditation, or even if it's Buddhism or whatever attracted you here. If you saw a post or something that I made on Instagram and wound up here, usually because you're trying to implement some kind of change, some kind of way of dealing with life that's helpful. All very legitimate reasons for seeking this out. But know that I got an email from someone who was the first time, I think last week or the week before, who was, asking about how you deal with fear of the future or things like that. Um, and I basically said, we offer this class, Nick and Victoria, myself, to share methods and a path that has helped us, um, in many, many, many facets, but in approaching life, and figuring out how to interact with the world and how we deal with life on a day-to-day basis. So for those of you who are new, it's not really easy, and we don't really have kind of a two-sentence answer to questions like that. And I'm not diminishing the question by any means. They're very legitimate, you know what I mean? But we're not like advice givers of advice or something like that. Say, well, just try this or something. It's like, this is a process and this is a path, and what you put in is what you get out, you know what I mean, by making consistent effort, staying on the path when it gets hard, going deeper, seeking out authentic teachers, like we always say. If that's what if you really feel drawn to this path, seeking out authentic teachers. Victoria and I are students, and we're sharing what we've learned and what's worked for us. But we are not authentic teachers of Buddhism. We can teach you meditation. That's very simple, really, in many ways, the techniques of it. But as far as if these teachings that we touch on about Buddhism attracts you, and you really want to make progress and you really want to dive into this path, you have to make contact and start, getting teachings from authentic teachers, from authentic lineages. That's really the way it works. So don't be discouraged by that. Don't be discouraged feeling that there's no quick fix, a quick, pithy, word of advice that I can give, or Victoria can give. But know that there are methods and there is a path that can help. But it's so that's what we're sharing. You know what I mean? Not just some like stay in the moment. You know what I mean? That's easy for me to say. Stay in the moment. Don't think about the future. Well, okay, that's easy to say, but not very easy to do. Anything of great value takes effort. Often a lot of effort, often effort over a long period of time. You think about in very kind of mundane kind of, coarse analogy, you know, you want to get in shape, you know, you have X amount of extra pounds and you can't walk up a flight of stairs without being out of breath, and your diet is bad and your health is declining and you want to get in shape. That's going to take a lot of effort over quite a long period of time, you know, and then you have to maintain it, you know what I mean? So we're talking about a process. We're not, you know, and I don't mean to diminish any questions you may have, which you can always run by us or stuff, but we're not like an advice column that can say, you know, I have trouble dealing with my, you know, spouse. You know what I mean? It's hard to just give words of advice when we're talking about a path. Now, if you are a practitioner, if you have been meditating regularly, if you are studying and you're doing these things, and then you have questions about how to implement your practice more into situations like that, then maybe we can be of a little bit of help based on our own personal experience, not from some big comprehensive objective view of Buddhism, which we don't have. You know, we're students. We can speak from experience what has worked for us and what doesn't. But so you know, keep that in mind, if you're new or if you're not, you know. But don't be discouraged to ask questions, but that may be kind of the answer, you know what I mean? It's like, if you're not working a practice and and working with a path, you know, a lot of these questions that you answer can't be answered in a vacuum that way, out of just like saying, well, you know, stay in the moment, or be, you know, be kind or something. Those things are easy to say, but you know, this is why we have a practice. This is why we follow a path, because it's, you know, it's a lifelong pursuit. You know what I mean? I hope that's clear. I don't mean at all to, like I said, to diminish anybody's curiosity or questions, or, you know, life is not easy. And we have a lot of difficulties and we have a lot of suffering. You know, the very first teaching of the Buddha is that in life there is suffering, you know, when we know that. And, but Buddha's third, you know, teaching was that there's a path that can lead you out of suffering, or that you can work with suffering through. So this is what we're touching on here. With that, Victoria has a few things she'd like to say, and then we'll meditate.
I just wrote you know, the main part of what we would love to do today with everyone is just meditate and bring into our meditation difficult situations, difficult people. By difficult situations, I mean everything that's based on one of the five afflictions. If it's something that's based on desire and it has turned into addiction, we can bring that into meditation and work with that. If it's a difficult person with whom we are unable to change somehow the chemistry of our interaction, and it's a continuously toxic experience, we bring that person into our meditation. If there are difficult things where we feel we are angry about a political situation, we feel impotent, we feel inadequate, we feel et cetera, we bring that into our meditation. And so that'll be the emphasis of what we do today in meditation. It'll be a little bit of a guided kind of a piece where we get to go in meditation from the appearance to the basis, because it's always important to know we're not just working with appearances. Appearances are consistent of our opinions and judgments and projections. Our perceptions depend on this a priori projections, because we see things in accordance to how our conceptual mind has already somehow decided on the situation before. So we're going to bring certain things into our meditation to go beyond that conceptual veil and to look at difficult situations in and through the basis and connection, and the basis through the basis of our mind. But how we do that is we always we guide ourselves with the view. The view is like when a scientist sets up an experiment, the theory of relativity, or some kind of an experiment, and before you go to a laboratory, you set up the view, how you're going to conduct your experiment. And the view is kind of like our map. It's something that's going to guide us through our meditation. And that map, we have specific points which we can take into the meditation. The very four important points that we always take into meditation is, for example, the four thoughts that turn the mind. And the teachers often say that our meditation goes awry or is fruitless if we don't have a strong basis in these four thoughts that turn the mind, what are called normally preliminary practices. That the four thoughts that turn the mind are impermanence, interdependence, emptiness, and the precious human birth. It is precious human birth because we can go and understand beyond the dualistic mind. We can tap into our basis, into what we have different words for. We call it Buddha nature. We call it, the ground. We call it reality. We call it the truth. It is the blossoming of it's when awareness sheds light in its kind of like full-on lamp-on modality. And that's what we call Buddha nature. That is what we call the ground. It's, there are many, many words, Mahamudra, etc., etc. That's why our human birth is so precious, is that we can look at the little movements of the mind within that grand space. That is something that we take with us into meditation as this part of the view number one. Part of the view number two, we take impermanence. We're not here to stay. We are here to learn things, the modality of all things, including our physical vessel and the accompanying conceptual mind that's observing and playing with all of that, like a kid is playing in a playroom or in a playground, making little sand castles. We take that that is the view portion of the view number two that we take into our lab, into our space where we are experimenting, we're meditating. Thing number three is that everything is interconnected. And that is very easy to understand for us beings who have absorbed at a very core basis that reality is not as we see it to be. On an ultimate level, we're talking about particles. And so for us, persons for whom maybe the notion of emptiness is very difficult. Start with the notion of particles that is so common sense and so deeply absorbed into ourselves. Start to think, I am particles, this floor is particles, he is particles, she is particles, this is particles. Why are these particles angry at those particles? Bring that into your awareness when you sit or you stand or you speak or you do. That is a very important part. So this interconnectedness is something that dissolves the solidity, my opinion, his opinion, all those are derivative modalities of conceptual mind within the big openness. Why is the concept of emptiness so important? It's empty of something. Our mind, our awareness is not a something. Our thoughts are not even some things. We experience them rise and fall, but try to grab onto it. It's as much as we can grab onto a rainbow, or the most important thing to us in our life, the reflection of ourself in the mirror. We wouldn't even know who we are in some sense unless we had that reflection in the mirror. But grabbing onto it is impossible. It's not a physical something that we can touch. And yet we rely on it so much. We rely on our opinions, but what are they? Can we grab onto them? No, we cannot. Our emotions. I am angry at someone. Well, where is that emotion? What is that emotion? Can I put that into my hand? Can I smell it? No, but I can't perceive it with my awareness. And that's what we're going to get into in the meditation. Reality, or the one basis of all things. We use that word reality to designate the basis of all things. Means that all things are connected in and by its matrix. They appear as different things. For example, if we take the theory of particles, we know that things appear, but the core, the basis are the particles. So we already know how to distinguish between appearance or movement and reality in its basic state. In the Buddhist universe, the most basic form, the basis of all things, is awareness, because we never forget that experiment, that scientist, that scientific theory of particles is always happening within the space of awareness. How is that scientist formulating the theory of everything as particles moving through space, or energy moving through space? He is doing so because he has or she has awareness, right? So for us as Buddhists, instead of particles, we use awareness. And that is what we're experimenting when we sit down. We want to get to it in an empirical sense when we sit down to meditate. That's why Buddhism is not something where we believe it's a system of beliefs, which we simply assume from somewhere. No, we have to do it for ourselves. That's why we sit in meditation, to experiment, to experience directly. We have to get at all these things directly. You cannot have an understanding of something secondhand that is valuable in a Buddhist sense. The notion of interdependence has to be something that each one of us experience for ourselves. The notion of emptiness has to be something that we experience directly. Notion of impermanence, the river of existence, shifting moment from moment, our consciousness from moment to moment, our existence from moment. We have to experience that directly. We have to have those experiences directly. And of course, the preciousness of precious human existence is something we have to experience directly. That's what meditation is: direct experience of the view. So we take our theory, we take our view, and we sit down and we experience. It's not just to shut down our mind. Yes, quieting the mind is the first phase of meditation, unquestionably. Because unless we quiet our mind, that dualistic labeling thing that goes, oh, this is this and this is that and this is that, and I have to do this and I have to run here, and that is a derivative level of mind that is again happening because we have the space of self-awareness. Now, all the derivative activity, or as we call it, movement of the mind, that is based on the 8 consciousnesses, the 5 senses, the mental consciousness that is capable of experiencing the information that our senses are giving to us, and then the 7th consciousness, which is the consciousness of me, and I'm experiencing things as that, or this, or them, or they, and me here on this dualism of subject and object, and then the store consciousness, from which we kind of experience the movie with already the given basis, because we've deposited so much into our storehouse, into our closet of experiences. So we will experience in a particular way based on all of these past perceptions. But all the 8 consciousnesses are a derivative, and they're always happening within the space of awareness. We don't have to say to ourselves, I am the one who's experiencing it. I am the one who's in this dream. I am the one who's, you know, having this experience. We know that. It's that self-reflective nature of awareness, which doesn't really have to say to itself, I'm experiencing this. I am the one who knows this. I am the one in the laboratory splitting the atom into other particles. That part is silent. It's pre-conceptual. We we have awareness, whether we sleep or we awake or whatever we do. The awareness within which the movement of mind, of conceptual mind, is happening is always there. It's always with us. And it's actually, you know, today we were watching a teaching by Taisito Rinpoche. He said, how do we define life and death? It's when the mind is present in the body, when awareness is present in the physical vessel, that's life. When that physical vessel is devoid of the mind, when it's time and the mind leaves the physical vessel, that's no longer us. That's just, you know, we call it a corpse. So very important to think about all that. I wrote down a couple of little things for us to take into meditation that may help us, I hope. Always ask yourself, where is our awareness lost? How do we lose the sight of this infinite space of awareness? It is lost in the conceptual web of ordinary dualistic mind. That's where we lose ourselves. We'll lose track of that infinite space of awareness that we call empty, or the ground, or Buddha nature. We lose ourselves in the dualistic, ignorant, local movement of our mind. It's like we take the whole sky and we channel it into a little keyhole, and all of us are just, you know, we think that, you know, our mind is just this little local event, but it's not. Remember, the sun is always there, whether we experience darkness or partial cloudiness or something. You know, if there was no sun, there would be no life. The same is with our awareness. Our awareness is always present. It doesn't matter if it's completely polluted by clouds. There is like an event that's going on where we're willing to kill someone because we're so polluted and funneled into our anger or into our ignorance, you know, et cetera, et cetera. But our awareness as such is always present and always grounds, no matter what event we are experiencing at the moment, how we're experiencing ourselves. Where do we lose or abandon ourselves? Where do we lose and abandon our autonomy, our control, our freedom? That is in our afflictions. So take those two things into meditation, and always remember, if you get stuck in a very difficult moment, expand it and ask yourself, where did I lose my mind? How did I lose my control? And you will always find that you're lost in by like addiction to a certain opinion or addiction to a certain afflictive emotion. And if you can penetrate through that, you know, you can open the door and not be looking through a keyhole. You can look through the hole. You open the door and you step into space, and awareness is unobstructed. You know, our mind is infinity, and here we're fighting for the crumbs of the ego. It's crazy. Our mind is like the sun, but we are like the caveman fighting for a bone. When we lose our awareness, we funnel our infinitude into a little tiny little dark space. At the same time, we have always, what does it mean? So we will usually we're either going to be like in a dualistic mind, completely unaware of the large space of our mind, or if we call ourselves meditators or practitioners, that means we become those beings who are aware of the ground awareness and the movement of conceptual mind taking space with it, inside it. That being aware of the ground awareness, which is usually what we do in meditation. We sit down to meditation to access that part of our mind, but we need to do that in order to bring that awareness into everyday daily activities. And that's what we call in Buddhism as wisdom mind, as opposed to this ignorant dualistic mind. The wisdom mind is something we have always known. It has always been with us. It's the kind of mind that tells us, far ego tells us, oh, I have cancer. I have, somebody gave me like a month to live because I have throat cancer. I've smoked. I've been a heavy smoker for 30 years of my life. So that stupid mind, the ignorant mind will tell us, just have another cigarette. What do you got to live for? Et cetera, et cetera. But the wisdom mind will say, no, don't smoke. Be free. Liberate yourself from this. The wisdom mind is the mind that knows love, that's not based on some kind of dualistic calculation. Like we're able to throw ourselves into a fire to save others, to save our children, to save our loved ones. That is the wisdom mind. The wisdom mind has always been there. We've known it forever. And so as practitioners, we kind of start to shift and identify with the wisdom mind, and then the dualistic little mind, the movement of the dualistic mind, we experience it as that movement in kind of like a relaxed mode. We relax that identity with the dualistic mind, with the movement of the mind. And so let's do the ninth breath. Let's clean our subtle body, which is the seed of our deepest sense of awareness. Let's visualize our central channel that goes from one end of us to the next and is open at the crown, a Brahma aperture. Along with it is the white and the red channel. They meet at under the navel, 4 fingers below the navel. Through the white channel, we will expel anger, hatred, aversion. Through the red channel, we will expel desire, fixation, attachment, and addiction. Through our central blue channel, our wisdom channel, we will expel ignorance, dualism, that which separates us from all. We will expel the extremes of thinking of permanence and impermanence. We are going to expel ignorance, which keeps us away from our ultimate nature, always stuck in this little space of dualistic mind. It's like the sun coming up. So let's do the Vajra fist. Inhale and then exhale through the side channel, the emotion connected to that channel 3 times. Inhale. Think what you're going to expel. And expel. Inhale white, brilliant Buddha energy. Expel the affliction. Switch. Expel the affliction. Inhale white, brilliant light. Expel the affliction. Inhale. Exhale the affliction. Through both nostrils, inhale brilliant white light. Exhale the affliction. Fill yourself with white, luminous light. Exhale the affliction. And on the last exhale, we will bring the green window of our awareness and push it through our opening at the crown. Inhale white light, bring it into your central channel, pushing your awareness to merge with the white light on the outside. The white inner light merging with white outer light is the space of awareness. We start our meditation. We let our awareness, inner and outer, merge. We experience our awareness, our consciousness as uninterrupted. There is no inner and outer. We can continue to use our breath as support. And with our eyes open or closed, very far away, we can visualize a periphery, a horizon. Our vision penetrates through everything that is in front of us. Remember when you have seen a horizon looking at the sky or at the ocean, that line, we place our awareness on that. And we are really doing it with our awareness as coming from our heart center. That horizon is in front of us. It is behind us. We can look with our heart center behind, in front, above, below. It's just the space of our awareness. And if anything arises, or we think of anyone, we stay with that horizon. Let's bring into that space in front of us, but still focusing on the horizon, a small, unpleasant situation, something which frustrates us. Not something huge, just something where we can correct ourselves. We can correct our energy. A neighbor, a friend, a relative, a tick, a habit that we would like to dissolve. That person, that situation is in front of us. We do 3 breaths to eliminate the difficulty inside that person. We inhale the difficulty and we dissolve it into the horizon, always coming back to our vision. And now we're going to look at ourselves and see that difficulty, that quality of that frustration or that energy. We're gonna almost kind of reach inside of ourselves and breathe it out of ourselves, always going back to the horizon. At the end of those breaths, you tell yourself, I can hold that tension, I can hold that feeling inside my bigger space of awareness, and I can take the painfulness out of it, and I can allow it to happen, but I can purify it right on the spot. I can hold it, I can be with it, and not be lost inside it. For the next set of breaths, we're going to bring up someone a little bit more difficult to us, maybe a teacher, if you're a student, a young person, or your boss, or a more difficult relative, difficult friend. And now we're going to engage in what we call Tonglen meditation. You bring that person in front of you, still maintaining the horizon line. And from your heart center, you will inhale their dark, whatever you think is dark inside them, into your heart center. In your heart center, there is a white, luminous sphere. When the dark light that you're inhaling from them touches your white, brilliant, luminous sphere, that is your awareness, the darkness immediately disintegrates, and when you exhale, you send the white light back to that person. So we're going to do that on the count of 3 deep breaths. And maintain the horizon as well as the Tonglen practice. Inhale dark, difficult energy from them. Dissolve and send back the light. Inhale dark, difficult energy from them. Send them luminous white energy from your heart. The last breath with compassion. Tell them, I am capable of loving you. I can hold whatever there is difficulty in you. Take that difficulty, inhale it, dissolve it, and send them all immeasurable love. you can also do that meditation with a version of yourself. Very often when we're engaged in very afflicted negative behaviors, addictions, you can visualize yourself as that afflicted being, and you can be your own doctor and your own medicine. You can send the light to yourself and dissolve it into your heart, and then completely dissolve, both becoming one being, being with this white luminous essence in your heart, and know that you can dissolve everything. At the end of that practice, when you're meditating on your enemy, or on a very difficult person, or on a person to whom you want to help them, a sick person, someone you want to help, someone in prison, someone in the hospital, someone in a deathbed, enemies is what we start with, because we're liberating them and ourselves from the hold of the negativity on ourselves. We're always remembering that when we're bringing up an enemy, we are also purifying ourselves. We're going into that practice to help them and ourselves. We're liberating both. We're extinguishing the fire on the two ends, the fire that's touching each other and merging into each other. We can do it for people that we truly want to change their life. We wish to help them. And then we can take the whole world and feel its suffering and bring it into our tongue and meditation. And at the end of the meditation, always remember, we can do it anytime. We should do it all the time. And that's what meditation space is for. And then always dedicate.
Thank you very much. We'll take some questions. If you have any. My mom's 94 in a nursing home. I'm the primary person to deal with issues that come up constantly, that threaten my mom's personal dignity and functioning. I keep winning my mom's case because I have video evidence, but I have a hard time letting go of the anger while remaining vigilant as a caregiver. Any advice to let go of the anger that drains me? Again, if you were here for the beginning, when I spoke about, I'm not sure, your name is Mara. I'm not sure if you've been here before or what, if you want to write back and let us know what your practice is and how long you've been practicing, it's kind of helpful to know. But I think exactly what Victoria just introduced in that meditation would be helpful.
You can start. For beginners, we visualize the person in whom we hold that anger. For intermediate practitioners, we already know that anger is an intrinsic quality. So we simply exhale it out. Bring up your anger and then do the ninefold meditation. Then work with your white channel. You don't need to do 3 breaths. Make it a full session of meditation, exhaling your anger. Remember, the anger is your own prison. It's what holds your awareness from having its full space. People may be fallible. We are fallible. They may not come up to our expectations, but it doesn't mean that we should embrace them or touch them with anger as our primary mode of accessing them or holding them. We should be grateful. No matter how much people may be tripping on helping your mother, she's still the recipient of their giving. And if you put that in front of your list, in front of your mind, as opposed to what they're not giving, if you go in with, I'm a benefactor, first of all, you're not taking care of your mother, they are. I'm a benefactor of their love all the time. She's a benefactor of their love and care and giving all the time. Yes, it may not be perfect, but place the being a recipient of the benefit first, and then think of the faults second. There is only so much that we can control, but we certainly can control our intrinsic energy. And anger is certainly, the more you will infuse the anger into contact with them, that anger will then be placed onto your mother. So keep the big picture in mind. Heal yourself, take it out of the middle management situation, and then finally take the anger out of spilling into your mother's care every day. Control the fire. And first you control it and then try to substitute it for love, because it's not just enough to control it with fire. We don't ever get to a neutral point. We have to control the fire, get to a neutral point, and then flood it with compassion. And that is for the more advanced practice.
And that person answered about her practice. I'm practicing meditation on and off for many years, but this has gotten me stuck.
Yeah,
Practicing meditation. I mean, on a personal level, and this is not, this is for you to decide as individuals. Meditation on its own, I mean, just to be blunt, I don't feel is really enough of a practice. I think often meditation is, there's meditation where it's good for people and they calm down and they get through their day because they're calmer or they feel, a little bit more at ease. But I think the mind and the afflictive emotions, habitual patterns that have been set are so ingrained and so powerful that without the view of Buddhism, like Victoria was talking about, I think it's really, really, really hard um, to progress on any kind of path without those teachings. So, meditating on and off is going to bear on and off results, you know what I mean? And meditating without any kind of bigger picture, I think, is going to, make it harder.
I mean, in Buddhism, we don't sit down just to we calm our mind as a primary entryway, as the door. It's like standing in front of the door to the shrine room. You calm your mind, you take your shoes off, you get composed before you open the door. But what we do, the practice itself, we are working with twofold ignorance. One is the primary form of ignorance of being separated, not understanding empty, those four thoughts that turn the mind. And the second, ignorance. So the first is this ignorance of dualism. It's called the all-pervasive ignorance. And the second form of what we're doing in meditation is we're working with our afflictions, because our afflictions distort everything. The afflictions don't allow us to access our awareness, and they also make us burn the world. So when we're looking with those laser eyes of hatred at whatever we're looking, we're burning it in our path. So if our practice doesn't touch on those two things, our afflictions and our ignorance, we're not meditating. We're in just this really preliminary state where we're just like taking our shoes off before opening the door. So don't confuse that with practice. This is a very big difference.
I've been going through a lot the past 2 months. I lost my grandfather. I'm anxious about my final exams. It's difficult to clear my mind and try to study. Again, I'm going back to what I said in the beginning. It's, I don't know what your practice is, how much, how often, how long you've been practicing. Again, what we're introducing here as a practice and even further as a possible path, this is what we find works. You know what I mean? Again, like a kind of quick fix to do to help your exams. I mean, I don't know if I have kind of an effective things besides what we're introducing here and in previous classes that you can access on YouTube on meditation and things, that those things can certainly help. We have a lot of books. The Power of Mind is a really good book for beginners, I found. That's by Khentrul Lodro Tai Rinpoche. You can find that on the Solidago Productions website. Getting into those teachings, reading books by, masters from authentic lineages and traditions is really helpful.
You know, I'm sensing from your question is what you really want to address is that your mind feels very small and very tight. It's under the burden of the things you need to perform and do, while at the same time you're burdened with the loss and what you may think is an inability to communicate with someone. It's something very important, and we wanted to mention it before. You know, the body disintegrates and the vessel dies, but the mental continuum, you know, our awareness, it's not a physical thing, so it doesn't really kind of leave the universe. That's why whatever we need to do with people who are no longer here in their physical form right now with us, they may be somewhere else already reborn, but we can always continue to make right with them. We can always continue to speak to them. We can ask them for forgiveness or tell them that we love them. If we didn't get a chance to do it, we were a little bit too late. So we can continue to make all the wrongs right and not be burdened with it. And, you know, the mental tightness that you're talking about, there's only one solution to that, and that is getting to know the nature of mind rather than only being connected and reduced to the conceptual movement. Conceptual movement is a derivative. It's like if I composed the song and now I'm going to play it on the piano, you know, looking at my fingers is not going to tell you about this space from where creation is generated. So it's going back to looking at the kind of the functional portions of ourselves, you know, these movements, the fingers, I have to study for my test, all the tightnesses and things that we feel, they're still happening within the open field of awareness, infinite field of awareness. So exhale all the difficulty, you know, and be patient with yourself. And always remember that you have Buddha nature. It's unfailing, it's unbreakable, it's always there.
And in your formal mindfulness practice, do you stick mostly to sitting? Do you ever incorporate practices like body scans or movement-based methods such as Qigong or Thich Nhat Hanh's 10 mindful movements? I know you come from Tibetan tradition. What is your view of engaged Buddhism? I don't really know what engaged Buddhism is. I think Thich Nhat Hanh was an incredible teacher and mind and being and human. I've read a bit of his stuff, which I really like. I don't practice, you know, I'm not a student of his per se, you know, or practice in his tradition. There are, you know, the 9 purifying breaths are subtle body practices that may be similar to some things like this. I'm not really sure, but those things are really anything further than that, you know, in the Tibetan tradition are given, you know, in accordance with it, working with a teacher over a certain degree of time when you're working on certain preliminary practices over time, and many of them are given in retreat settings. Yeah.
If you're implying work with our subtle body, like when we do the 9 breath purification, that is a very great work of working with our subtle body, of course. But just, you know, going away a little bit from narrowing down to this question, it's very important to know that practice, what we call practice, is something that starts with the intention and motivation of benefiting others. So if we are purifying ourselves and we are scanning our vessel and doing all these things so that when we engage, we can do it with that mind of benefiting others, because that's really the beginning of practice, is when our mind is set on benefiting all beings. We're included in all beings. It's not like we're doing it against ourselves. It's very important to know that practice is not a physical yoga of well-being. We clean our channels, and whatever we do with our subtle body is to purify it of afflictive emotion. Meaning afflictive emotion is physical energy of a certain negativity, because when I am afflicted and I speak through that negative affliction, it'll be harsh speech. When I do, it'll be harsh action, etc., etc. But, you know, just to make sure that we're distinguishing between uh, uh, personal wellness as opposed to working with our subtle body to get us to the next level of practice, which is even a more advanced form of benefiting all beings, because that's really what we call practice, is that we start with the intention of we're benefiting all beings, us ourselves being included in that.
What type of self-care do you do on occasion? Well, I don't think it's on occasion. I think self-care is a daily thing, like eating properly, getting rest, exercise. Um, as far as what information that you take in, not being too toxic or toxic all the time, being, I mean, for me and Victoria also, looking at art, going to, museums or reading books, obviously practice Buddhism and practicing Buddhism and meditation and things like that. I don't think there's anything revolutionary what I'm saying there.
But all of that also, I would say, it's having an understanding of karma, cause and effect. It is always doing things in a manner that does not create harm, because we're also always engulfed in that harm ourselves as well. So it's not, we think of karma, cause and effect not because we want to steer clear from bad things, but it's just like if you think of reality as an ocean and ourselves as a drop in that ocean. Every time we perform negative action of body, speech, or mind, the ocean becomes polluted and we're a part of it. And every time we purify that drop ourselves, we're purifying the whole ocean. That's practice. Our self-care has to do with constantly practicing and being aware of what we're doing with body, speech, and mind. No?
Yeah. You don't need you don't need me to agree. I see your post regarding progressive views about what's going on in the Supreme Court. Have you always had progressive views? Like no homophobia, was it when you followed Buddhism? I don't really consider my views progressive. I just think they're, I mean, having, equal rights for all human beings and acknowledging everyone's basic humanity as the same. I don't find that progressive at all. I think that's, fundamental. I don't find that progressive. I don't consider myself progressive at all. I mean, I'm anti-regressive, if that's the case, going backwards. But no, I've always had views like this, and not all Buddhists are progressive. I would say there's probably Republican or conservative Buddhists. I don't think I don't think there's any political thing that needs to be adhered to regarding Buddhism. Actually, Buddhism is very apolitical. You know. Um, so, yeah, I don't really find, there's another related question regarding this. How do I not get overwhelmed and let go of the decisions of the Supreme Court? I've been meditating and sober for 44 years, but I'm having a difficult time not wanting to run. There's nowhere to run. Maybe run for office. That might be good. Or you can fight against them. But yeah, sure, it's difficult. The life is difficult, and there's always going to be challenges, and there were challenges. Listen, 50 years ago, the civil rights movement was going on. There's always been challenges, and there will be challenges. These are our challenges now. um you can be as engaged as you want to be, or as not as engaged as you want to be. You can vote, you can be an activist, you can volunteer if you feel impotent and want to be part of the process and campaign, be on a campaign, or you can just participate in more ways that are not overtly political, like um, volunteer uh, at the homeless center, or gay community center, if you feel that's where you want to be involved. It's um And of course, keeping practice, maybe delve further into your practice, maybe make more of a commitment, to teachings, or finding a teacher if you haven't, or taking refuge, or whatever that is. I mean, it's, um, when you're sick, you take medicine, and when you're really sick, you take stronger medicine. You know, and when you're well, you do things well, like self-care, like routines of wellness that keep you going, and we have to keep those things in mind. Um,
It's also very important not to confuse hatred with some kind of justification, political or otherwise. Hate is hate. There is no justified hate. And if we are practitioners and we call ourselves practitioners, we ask ourselves why we're practitioners. It's because we want to eliminate all and each affliction. We also don't forget that all sentient beings have Buddha nature. It is not up to us to say this one is good and that one is bad. That's just the baby mind speaking. We may consider ourselves very sophisticated, etc., but this judgmental mind, it should help us cross the street, but not judge others. So we have to be very, very cautious and relaxed when we're doing those kinds of things. What's good today and consider it viable opinion today, tomorrow will be exactly upside down. Sadly, the upside down is going in a very regressive manner. It almost feels like the light is going out of our society, because I can only tell you that really evolved spiritual beings love all of us, despite our defects and small mindedness and whatever our condition of ignorance is. Ignorance is like a disease, and there are those doctors that go to the island and live with the lepers to help them. So, it's more to emulate ourselves on those rather than, cultivate hatred in whatever acceptable forms uh, of social injustices that we have now.
do you think you have to be Buddhist to truly meditate? I don't know what truly meditate means. The truly adjective there, but or adverb, whatever that is. No, you don't have to be Buddhist to do this class. You don't have to be Buddhist if that's not what you're into. You don't have to be Buddhist um, to meditate by any means. Again, this class, Victoria and I are Buddhists, and we've been fortunate enough to have been students of particularly Garchen Rinpoche, who's, are very fortunate to have found him in this world as a teacher, and many other Buddhist teachers we've been very fortunate enough to get teachings from. And these beings and their teaching has been so meaningful that we feel kind of an obligation and a joy as well to share that with you. But no, you don't have to be to meditate.
And also remember the real qualities, the sign of really good practice is that we become soft, we become compassionate. And I don't mean some kind of a sentimental thing. It's nice to be soft and sentimental. That's kind of a beginning that you have some kind of a capacity, but really the signs and the fruition of meditation should be compassion for all sentient beings. Buddha just means like a fully awakened. So if your heart is fully awakened or is moving in that direction, you really start to feel like you can hold others, even when they're just like terrible 5-year-olds and do terrible things, that you can love them and hold them, and compassion and love is growing, then you're completely on to the way to that blossoming that we call Buddha. Uh, you know, yes, there are Buddhist institutions, but they're really just to cultivate just this. There's nothing more. It's knowing one's mind and knowing that the quality of the mind is the fruition of the mind, is the way it manifests in the world is through compassion.
Okay, this is a very good question. We kind of brought it up, but it's really good. Uh, how can I incorporate the practice of meditation into my daily life? Is it about routine? Is practice routine? Okay, there's two things for that. I'm going to answer one, and Victoria's going to answer the other. There's your daily routine. That's how you incorporate meditation into a daily routine, by making it routine, by doing it like brushing your teeth every day, by making commitment to sitting. It helps if you do it at the same time in the same place. Create a little corner, a spot in your house, with a little, if you want to do an altar, if you just want to do a flower, if you want to do a view, whatever it is, make it routine. How to bring the practice of meditation into daily life off the cushion is a really good question, and Victoria can fill you in on that.
The reason why we do a daily routine is so that we can incorporate it into every breath of our life, infuse it into everything. We don't sit for ourselves just to so and so. We sit to familiarize. It's like if you're a fireman, you go through training. So sitting is the training, but it is in order to run into a burning building to save someone. So we remember that when we go out in the world, it's like stepping into a burning building. Every moment counts. And if once a day we can say to ourselves, instead of, I hate this boss, he's a horrible person, he's like this and like this. If we can substitute that once a day or every moment of the day for the four immeasurables, may you have happiness, may you be free from suffering, etc., etc. We are practicing, and that's what practicing is. Practicing is in the world. We learn in the cushion how to practice to bring it into the world, and the practice is replacing little by little our atrophied, dark, dead mind of selfishness and grasping into this that works through the ignorance and the five afflictions. I hate you, he's like this, she's like that, and put it on the side of luminosity and bring the heart, the openness, the awareness. If we can look at our door before we leave and set it as a trigger and say, okay, I'm going to go out there right now. I'm going to step through this door, but I'm going to go with the four immeasurables out there. I'm going to say, may you have happiness, be free from suffering, etc., etc. You're practicing, and everything, and practice happens with intention. If you know you're going to meet that difficult person and you say to yourself, but before I meet that person, I am going to I'm going to go into the four immeasurables and meet them with that space. And I'm going to do Tonglen when I see them. Then we're practicing. So we sit so that we can bring it to life, to practice.
Okay, we have two, because we asked for feedback a couple of weeks ago on how the practice, how it's working or not working, or how you're using it, and we wanted to hear from you. We have two. Yesterday, I encountered a neighbor who I long ago decided to mostly ignore because I had judged her actions to be unkind. She was asking questions about something after we both walked away. I turned back and asked if she needed help, and she gratefully accepted. Sounds small, but I credit these discussions and my reading because I have been behaving in my own way towards her for about 7 years. And the second one is, I've been meditating daily 3 years now. I began in this class, and I joined a local Sangha. Sangha is like a Buddhist congregation, kind of. Being diligent with practice has truly opened my mind and heart, and even coworkers comment on my ability to stay calm with difficult patients in our clinic. And when I struggle with my mother-in-law, I practice Tonglen. I consider myself a baby Buddhist. I think we're all baby Buddhists. Yes. But I have immense gratitude for access to this class. Well, we're very, it's good to hear this. It's good to share it with others who are new maybe, or who are, struggling in the beginning, and it's hard to just see that, these are seem like maybe small movements, but they're actually big, huge, very big victories. And we're very happy to thank you for sharing those, and happy to hear that.
Because if you can turn one moment of ignorance or afflicted mind into a moment of generosity, into a moment of patience, into like a dark moment, and you throw the switch, you put the light of your mind, of mindfulness, and saying, I can hold this, I can do this, I have Buddha nature, that person has Buddha nature, and I can reverse from inside to the outside, I can shed light. and make this moment of some kind of gratitude and make this moment of compassion, that's practice. And nothing is small. It cannot be small. Any act of generosity is when we use our Buddha nature. It's huge. It's like a flashlight in the darkness. It's huge because it's allowing us to walk, and whoever is walking next to us, they also won't trip and fall. It's huge. I mean, we have to know that we're using our wisdom mind each time we reverse this darkness into light. It's so important. And thank you for sharing, because it really, you see yourself that you're practicing, and practice is really taking root. It's like we're going from illness to health, and that's how we practice is experienced that way. Certainly our inner state also spills into our outer state, because that's what we bring into everything. And you can see how it changes everything.
You seem down today. Hope all is well. Thanks for speaking out on your platform. I assume you mean me. I'm not down at all. I'm actually very happy and very inspired today, which is a good teaching because it shows how subjective view can be diluted and is more about projection, right? Because you're seeing something, you're seeing something that's not true, probably because you're reading something into, your own projection into something. But interesting teaching. Last question. We're out of time. If you do have, like they say in AA, burning desires that you need to write, you can write. If you need, some discussion or some, answer, if we can give, go to our Gmail account, which is Michael Imperioli Meditation 101 at Gmail. And then I once heard during a program you offered that patience is the antidote for anger. That has helped me through the years. Is this directly put into practice by working out practice with patience as well?
Absolutely. The 6 immeasurables. Generosity is the first. In fact, generosity almost includes everything else, because patience is a part of generosity. It's like being generous, standing, being strong with our heart in face of difficulty. That is also generosity. That is also patience. Yes, patience is something that works with our inner energy and with the other person as well. It's like taking the heat down. It is one of the 6 immeasurables. We've had a long discussion on that. We actually went through the entire 6. They're called transcendent wisdoms, paramitas. This is how we know how to bring practice and shed light into very dark, difficult moments. And yes, impatience is a form of anger. You start with the shortness, then it's impatience, then it's being really bothered, then it's, and eventually culminates in hate. But, patience is a very important thing, because patience is an acceptance of the views of others, of their condition, whether they're very unevolved, they're still are like in a very baby mind, or whatever it is, indulgent. If we can bring patience, we bring wisdom.
And as Chogyam Trungpa Rinpoche said, if you're a Buddhist or practitioner, or practicing Buddhism, patience is an obligation. It's not a choice or decision when it's good for you, when it's not. That's what when you take refuge in the Buddha, in the Dharma and the Sangha, you're taking refuge in the Dharma, you're basically taking on patience as an obligation, that I am committing to becoming a patient being, in situations. And related as well, a little bit different, in a more almost self-serving way. When you're in moments when your natural inclination is to be impatient, it's a really, really great opportunity to practice patience, to work, to work your path, to practice patience. Something as simple as being online and buying coffee and it's taking too long, and the person at the front is, asking too many questions. that's an opportunity to practice, you know. I mean, it could also be much more severe, you know, and pressing situations as well. But, you know, those two things, when your impatience comes up, it's always an opportunity to practice, to meditate, to be mindful. And also, if you are committing to this path, it's not a when you feel like it, it's an obligation, you know. With that in mind, again, for those of you who want more information, go to Solidago Productions. There's teachers, there's books. We'll probably see you next Sunday. Thanks to Nick Solidio, our producer, for making this possible through his kindness and generosity. Thanks for coming. Every class, we dedicate whatever merit was generated from today's class for the benefit of all beings. All beings. By this merit, may all beings attain the state of enlightenment and conquer the enemies of faults and delusions. May they be liberated from this ocean of samsara and its pounding waves of birth, old age, sickness, and death. See you next